On a snowy night in Boston, Virginia Caldwell dragged her tired feet as she opened the door to her apartment. Every muscle in her body ached after a grueling 12-hour shift at the care facility. Her lower back throbbed with a familiar pain as she stepped inside, only to be greeted by the cold atmosphere and the sound of her mother and sister laughing in the kitchen. "Oh, Virginia, you're back," her mother Evelyn said without turning around, her voice lacking any warmth of welcome. The television was tuned to a medical drama, the sounds of a fictional surgery filling the background. At the kitchen table sat her sister Pamela, who had opened her medical school laptop. Unlike Virginia, she possessed a bright, radiant beauty that seemed untouched by exhaustion. Her perfectly manicured fingers tapped away as she updated her Instagram page, with photos of herself in a white coat. "Long day, huh?" Pamela said, but her eyes never left the screen as she added hashtags to her post. #futurend, #medical excellence, #doctorlife. Virginia winced as she took off her coat, the movement sending shooting pain through her shoulder joints, the result of years of lifting patients. She quietly approached the small kitchen table, rubbing her wrist where carpal tunnel had been flaring up again. This tiny apartment had been home to the three of them since she was in her 20s, after her father died of cancer. Their lives had completely changed after his death. Evelyn had turned to prescription pills to cope with her grief, and although she occasionally worked as a substitute teacher, it was far from enough to support the household. "Pamela, how was the clinical rotation at the hospital today?" Virginia asked her sister, fighting through her fatigue to show interest. "It was amazing. The attending physician praised my diagnosis, said it was the most accurate in the group." Pamela looked up for the first time, showing a beaming smile. Her mother peered over her shoulder, admiring the stream of likes appearing on her Instagram post. "And I got matched for the residency program at Crawford Memorial too. Congratulations," Virginia said with genuine sincerity, ignoring the twinge in her back as she reached for a glass of water. Evelyn embraced her younger daughter's shoulder and proudly said, "My daughter is truly exceptional. Pamela will definitely become a first-class surgeon. Your father would be so proud in heaven." Virginia smiled, but her eyes betrayed a deeper sadness. When her father was alive, she too had talked about her dreams for the future, completing nursing school, advancing in healthcare, and someday developing better care programs for patients like him. But with her father's death, those dreams had slipped away. She dropped out of nursing school. The family needed immediate income. Evelyn didn't particularly object to her daughter quitting her education. "Virginia isn't really cut out for medical work," she often said, reaching for her pill bottle. In reality, Virginia had been an exceptional student with a natural gift for patient care, but her mother never acknowledged that. For over 30 years, Virginia had worked punishing jobs in healthcare: nursing assistant, home health aide, care facility coordinator. Her body bore the physical toll of this work: chronic pain, limited mobility in her shoulders, and the permanent exhaustion that came from emotional labor. Most of her wages went to the household, covering Evelyn's mounting prescription costs and, above all, Pamela's expensive medical school tuition. "Oh my God, look at this, Virginia," Pamela said in an excited voice, turning her laptop screen. "Dar Bennett Crawford is giving a lecture series on neurosurgery next month. It's exclusive, only top students get invited. I have to get a new outfit." Virginia discreetly swallowed a pain reliever, then took several bills out of her wallet and placed them on the table. "Is this enough for what you need?" "Thanks, sis," Pamela said happily, snatching up the money without looking Virginia in the eye. There were no further words of gratitude, as if financial support from her sister was simply expected, like the sunrise or the changing of seasons. After leaving the kitchen, Virginia entered her small room and closed the door behind her. Her body ached as she eased herself onto the edge of her bed. She reached beneath it, wincing as her joints protested, and pulled out an old laptop case. At night, after her family had gone to bed, this was her sanctuary, her secret time away from the demands of others. Virginia had been teaching herself healthcare management and patient advocacy. She took online courses, learned digital care planning systems, and mastered the basics of healthcare coordination. 2 years ago, she had launched a small home care coordination service, helping families navigate the complex world of elder care. At first, it was just a few clients a month, struggling families looking for affordable solutions for their aging parents. But gradually her client base began to grow. She skillfully developed relationships with local doctors and created comprehensive care plans that addressed both medical and emotional needs. This is what healthcare should be, she whispered to herself as she reviewed a care plan for an elderly patient with Alzheimer's. The woman's handwritten thank you card sat beside her computer. You gave my mother dignity in her final years. No doctor ever took the time you did. She never told her family about her growing business. She didn't think her mother and sister would take what they would surely dismiss as glorified babysitting seriously. In the medical hierarchy her family respected, doctors reigned supreme, while those who actually provided hands-on care were practically invisible. 6 months ago, Virginia's business took a major leap forward. Her innovative care protocols were recommended by several prominent physicians, and referrals flooded in. A local geriatrician had mentioned her service in a medical journal, praising her patient-centered approach. The profits far exceeded her expectations, allowing her to hire staff and expand her services. Last month, she had moved into a modern condominium without telling her family, not that they seemed to notice her absence. To her mother and Pamela, Virginia was just the failure daughter, a nursing school dropout wasting her life without success. Contact was kept to a minimum, usually only when Pamela needed money. Virginia's phone rang, interrupting her work on a new telehealth initiative. It was Pamela. Virginia. Huge news. Her sister's voice trembled with excitement. Dar Bennett proposed to me. He's the Crawford family's son, you know, the neurosurgeons. The wedding is in 3 months at the Crawford Medical Center's historic hall. You'll come, of course. Virginia offered sincere congratulations despite the dull ache in her chest. Through the phone, she could hear Evelyn shouting in the background. My daughter is marrying into medical royalty. A Crawford. Pamela continued to talk about the wedding details, the prestigious medical center venue, hundreds of healthcare professionals as guests, an exclusive designer dress. Virginia, please wear something appropriate to the ceremony, Pamela said with a hint of condescension in her voice. These are important medical professionals. I can't have my sister looking like she works in a nursing home. After hanging up the phone, Virginia stood by the window of her office, gazing at the night view of Boston. The cityscape from her corner office was magnificent. The top floor of a modern building had become the headquarters for dignified sunset care. On her desk lay her business card as founder and CEO. The latest issue of Healthcare Innovation magazine featured an article about her company's revolutionary approach to elder care. Her trembling fingers touched the glossy cover where her photo appeared. Her family knew nothing about her success, and for now, Virginia had no intention of revealing it. The pain of years of dismissal ran too deep. She simply planned to attend her sister's wedding and quietly celebrate, while continuing to pay for the very event where she would be treated as an embarrassment. On the day of Pamela's wedding, Virginia stepped into the elevator of the historic Crawford Medical Center with a gentle smile. Her heart fluttered with nervous anticipation as she gazed at her reflection in the mirror. The simple yet elegant silver-gray dress accentuated her refined beauty, cleverly hiding the compression garments supporting her aching back. The subtle embroidery at the neckline was her own design, a pattern of intertwined hands, symbolizing care and connection. As she entered the magnificent Heritage Hall where the ceremony would take place, Virginia was enveloped by the opulent decorations celebrating medical achievement. Crystal centerpieces shaped like DNA helixes caught the light, while framed medical journals and awards lined the walls. The air was filled with the scent of expensive flowers and the murmur of distinguished voices discussing research grants and hospital politics. Virginia, you actually came. Turning around, there stood Evelyn. Her mother was dressed in a flashy red dress with prescription pill-shaped gold earrings and bracelets dangling at her wrists, gifts she claimed were from doctor friends, though Virginia had paid for them. Of course, Mother. It's Pamela's special day. Virginia smiled kindly, ignoring the twinge in her shoulder as she embraced her mother. Evelyn looked Virginia up and down with critical eyes and said, Well, For someone who spends her days with old people, you look surprisingly presentable. That was her highest compliment to her daughter. Have you greeted the Crawford family? Evelyn asked, craning her neck to spot the prestigious medical dynasty among the guests. Not yet. Hurry and go introduce yourself. It's important to make a good impression on them. These are brilliant medical minds. Behave in a way that won't embarrass Pamela. Don't mention your care work too much. Virginia nodded quietly, feeling the familiar sting of dismissal. She walked around the venue, greeting some familiar faces, old nursing school classmates who had completed their degrees, former neighbors, and relatives from her mother's side. When asked about her current life, she would vaguely answer, I help coordinate care for elderly patients, downplaying her growing company and innovative approach to healthcare. After the elegant lunch featuring foods named after famous medical discoveries, it was time for the reception. The groom, Dr. Bennett Crawford, was a tall, imposing man whose kind eyes revealed a genuine compassion as he gazed at Pamela. Despite his prestigious background, there was something humble about him that Virginia immediately appreciated. Pamela, dressed in a pure white gown, with a stethoscope charm bracelet at her wrist, looked the perfect medical bride she had always aspired to be. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, the MC announced, it's time for the toast. First, let's hear a few words from the bride's mother, Mrs. Evelyn Caldwell, former educator. As the venue fell silent, Evelyn walked to the stage with exaggerated confidence and took the microphone. She wore a beaming smile, her eyes darting around to ensure all the important doctors were watching. Thank you all for gathering here today for my daughter Pamela's wedding, Evelyn said, her voice performatively warm. I am truly blessed to have such a brilliant daughter and to see her being welcomed into such a distinguished medical family today. As an educator myself, I always emphasize the importance of intellectual achievement. Evelyn paused once and looked around the venue, clearly savoring her moment in front of so many prestigious figures. When her eyes stopped on Virginia, her expression changed slightly, hardening at the edges. Let me tell you all a little secret. She changed her tone of voice, continuing as if telling a joke. Actually, the bride Pamela is my only true intellectual heir. A few uncomfortable laughs spread through the venue. Evelyn, misinterpreting this reaction as encouragement, raised her voice even more. Some of you may have met my other daughter, Virginia. Where is she? Ah, there she is. Evelyn pointed at Virginia. Suddenly, the venue's lights turned toward her, making Virginia stiffen involuntarily, her hand instinctively moving to massage her aching wrist. She is technically my other daughter, but honestly, she's what we educators call an underachiever, Evelyn said with a forced laugh. Nursing school dropout, never became a real healthcare professional. She just helps old people with basic needs. Very different from Dr. Pamela Crawford, isn't she? The venue was filled with uncomfortable silence punctuated by a few nervous chuckles. Several distinguished medical professionals exchanged concerned glances, clearly disturbed by this unprofessional display. Virginia felt her face burning with humiliation, but she maintained a dignified expression, years of patient care having taught her to mask her own discomfort. But today is the day of my pride and joy, my true daughter Pamela. Evelyn continued, oblivious to the discomfort she was creating. She graduated from a prestigious medical school with honors, mastered complex surgical techniques, and now becomes a member of one of the most respected medical families in America. As her former teacher, I couldn't be prouder. As Evelyn was about to put down the microphone, Pamela stood up and said with forced cheerfulness, Mom, may I say something too? She went on stage and took the microphone from her mother, her face wearing what appeared to be a smile of gratitude but had an undercurrent of condescension that Virginia recognized all too well. Everyone, you may have been surprised by my mother's candid words, Pamela said, adjusting her designer glasses. But Mom, don't be too hard on my sister. She might take it personally. Not everyone can handle the pressures of real medicine. Uncomfortable murmurs spread through the venue. Virginia remained seated quietly, staring at her wine glass, feeling the weight of every eye in the room upon her. Actually, my sister has always supported me, Pamela continued with a theatrical sigh. How dedicated she was. She would do anything so I could attend medical school. even give up her own modest nursing aspirations. Caregiving is in her nature, after all. Pamela's words seemed to convey gratitude on the surface, but her tone carried a cruel subtext that was impossible to miss. Several of the older doctors in the room frowned noticeably. So today, I want to express my appreciation to my sister, because without her sacrifices, I might not have become the physician I am today. Someone has to do the important work of basic care while others advance medical science. Pamela looked directly at Virginia. In her eyes dwelled a complex emotion, a mixture of genuine guilt quickly masked by entitlement and superiority that had been reinforced for decades. Virginia slowly stood up, her body protesting with familiar aches as she rose from her seat. The venue's attention turned to her like a physical force. She began walking toward the stage, with measured steps, fighting through the pain in her knees with each movement. There was a quiet dignity in her posture that commanded respect. Pamela's expression clouded with sudden unease. Her perfectly maintained smile faltered at the edges. She hadn't expected such a reaction from her sister. Virginia had always endured the barbs and dismissals in silence, never challenging the family narrative. "What are you doing?" Pamela whispered urgently as Virginia approached the stage. As Virginia came on stage, Pamela stepped back instinctively. Virginia took the microphone from her sister slowly while wearing a gentle smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The venue fell completely silent. A look of panic flashed across Evelyn's face as she clutched her purse where her prescription bottles rattled. Virginia held the microphone and looked around the entire room, making eye contact with the distinguished medical professionals gathered there. There were no tears in her eyes, only a quiet determination born from decades of being undervalued and invisible. "Now, let's begin the real celebration." Her voice, though soft from years of speaking soothingly to frightened patients, resonated throughout the venue with unexpected authority. Virginia stood motionless on stage, one hand discreetly massaging her lower back. The atmosphere in the venue had completely transformed, with the uncomfortable laughter from earlier completely gone. Her silver-gray dress, illuminated by the stage lights, made it look as if she herself was glowing with an inner strength that had been hidden for too long. Evelyn tried to grab her daughter's arm, hissing, "Sit down." But Virginia gently sidestepped her, the movement practiced from years of navigating around hospital beds and wheelchairs. Pamela watched her sister with an expression half filled with fear and half with fascination, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Virginia brought the microphone to her lips and began speaking in a calm, professional voice that she usually reserved for difficult family consultations. "Today, my heart is full seeing my dear sister Pamela join her life with someone who shares her passion for medicine." Her voice contained no bitterness or resentment, just the genuine warmth of someone who had spent a lifetime putting others' needs before her own. The tension in the venue eased slightly, several physicians nodding in approval at her gracious beginning. "As some of you may know, our family's journey hasn't been an easy one since our father passed away from pancreatic cancer 16 years ago. I watched him suffer through inadequate pain management and fragmented care, an experience that shaped my understanding of what healthcare should truly be." Virginia took a deep breath, her chest tight with emotion. Her eyes seemed to be gazing into the distance, as if looking at a screen projecting those painful memories of her father's final days. "When I was 22, my father was suddenly taken from us. I watched cancer ravage his body while our healthcare system failed him at every turn. At that moment, our lives changed completely." Virginia's voice caught slightly, but she quickly regained her professional composure, the same composure she maintained when speaking with families of dying patients. "I dropped out of nursing school in my final year. Many of you might assume I simply couldn't handle the rigors of medical education. Indeed, my mother has often suggested as much." She looked directly at Evelyn, whose face was beginning to flush with a combination of anger and embarrassment. "But the truth is different, and I think it's time you all heard it." Virginia adjusted her posture, standing taller despite the pain. "The truth is, I left nursing school to support my family. After my father's death, my mother struggled with prescription medication dependency and couldn't maintain steady employment, and my sister Pamela still had her dream of becoming a doctor. I wanted her to have every opportunity to succeed in medicine, even at the cost of my own aspirations. Virginia slowly looked around the venue, making deliberate eye contact with Dr. Margaret Thornton, whose groundbreaking Alzheimer's research she had studied extensively. Many of the medical professionals were now leaning forward, listening with growing interest and respect. For over 30 years, I worked multiple jobs in healthcare, morning shifts at a nursing home, afternoon hours providing home care to terminally ill patients, and night duty at assisted living facilities. My body has paid the price. She gestured to her stiff posture, the slight tremor in her hands that every healthcare worker in the room would recognize as the toll of physical caregiving. I averaged 4 hours of sleep for decades, she smiled with a hint of sadness. Yet I never regretted my choice. Knowing that my salary could help my sister attend a prestigious medical school was deeply fulfilling. I was also able to pay for my mother's extensive prescription medication costs and therapy sessions, though she never completed the treatment programs. Evelyn had now completely lost color in her face. She tried to mouth "sit down now" to Virginia, her eyes darting nervously to the Crawfords, hoping they weren't paying attention to this uncomfortable revelation. As my mother pointed out, I am indeed a nursing school dropout. I never had time to marry or have children of my own while caring for everyone else's loved ones. Virginia's voice carried no self-pity, just simple truth. A few knowing nods came from the older nurses in the audience. But whether I'm a failure in healthcare or not, I'll leave to your professional judgment. I myself have come to understand what truly matters in patient care. She paused and took a sip of water, her throat dry from years of explaining care plans to worried families. I do have something I'd like to share with you all today. This magnificent wedding celebration that brings together two medical families. I've paid for every cent of it. The venue erupted in hushed whispers. Pamela stood frozen with her mouth open in shock. The perfect image of the beautiful bride suddenly cracked. When my sister called to tell me she was engaged to Dr. Crawford, I was genuinely happy because despite everything, I've always wanted Pamela to find fulfillment. I wanted to help her realize the prestigious medical wedding she had dreamed of. Virginia continued, her voice steady despite the emotion building in her chest. You all must be wondering, how could I, a nursing school dropout working in basic care, afford such an extravagant event? She smiled knowingly at Dr. Thornton, who was watching her with growing interest. 2 years ago, I started a small healthcare coordination service based on what I learned caring for my father at home. I developed a comprehensive model that combines telehealth with in-home care services, creating individualized care plans that maintain dignity while reducing hospitalizations. What began as a small service has grown into dignified sunset care, which now operates in 5 states and partners with Medicare and Medicaid on innovative pilot programs. Gasps of recognition spread through the medical professionals in the room. Some of you might know my company by our recent Patient-Centered Care Innovation Award. We're revolutionizing how elder care is delivered, integrating medical supervision with compassionate daily support, bridging the gap that my father fell through. From the corner of the venue, an elegant older woman stood up. She commanded attention with her distinguished appearance and the quiet authority that comes from decades at the top of her field. Ms. Virginia Caldwell, the woman's authoritative voice cut through the murmurs. You are the founder of Dignified Sunset Care, the one whose telemonitoring program was featured in last month's Geriatric Care Innovation Journal? Virginia calmly nodded. Yes, that's right. You must be Dr. Margaret Thornton. Your work on early Alzheimer's intervention has been instrumental in shaping our cognitive support protocols. It's an honor to meet you. The venue buzzed with even more intense conversation. Dr. Thornton, Bennett's mentor, and one of the most respected medical researchers in America, was now smiling at Virginia with professional admiration. Your integrated care model has reduced hospital readmissions by 42% in elderly populations, results that traditional medical interventions have failed to achieve. Dr. Thornton continued, I believe your company received $50 million in federal grants last quarter to expand your model nationally. Virginia smiled modestly. We're still working to improve our methods. There's so much more to do for patients. The venue had now completely transformed. Medical professionals who had been looking at Virginia with condescension moments ago were now regarding her with professional respect. and curiosity. Evelyn had turned ashen, gripping the edge of her chair for support. Pamela just stood frozen, the perfect smile she had practiced for Instagram completely forgotten. Virginia brought the microphone back to her lips, her hands steady despite the emotions swirling within her. I didn't come here to discuss my professional achievements. Today is Pamela and Bennett's day. She turned toward the couple with genuine warmth. I'm speaking only because after decades of silence, I wanted to share something important, the truth about care. She took a deep breath, her chest tight with suppressed emotion, as she looked around the entire venue. The reason I left nursing school was to support my family when they needed me. The reason I worked punishing healthcare jobs was to give my sister the chance to become a physician, and the reason I kept quiet about my success was. Her voice wavered slightly, decades of being dismissed surfacing in a moment of vulnerability. It was because I was caught between wanting recognition for my work in healthcare and not wanting to disrupt my family's narrative about who I was supposed to be. For the first time, tears welled up in Virginia's eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. Standing tall despite the pain in her back, the same way she had stood by countless patients in their moments of need. I always loved my mother and sister, even when they dismissed my work as meaningless. I didn't mind sacrificing my own healthcare education for them because I believe that's what family means, being there when it matters most. Virginia's voice resonated with genuine emotion that touched even the most clinical minds in the room. The venue was completely silent. Tears glistened in the eyes of many guests, particularly the nurses and care workers who recognized their own unsung sacrifices in her words. But eventually, I realized that my understanding of care had value beyond my family. My experience with my father showed me the gaps in our medical system, the places where patients fall through the cracks between hospital visits. So 5 years ago, I began developing a new approach to elder care, standing on my own clinical knowledge and lived experience. Virginia paused here and gazed at Pamela. Despite everything, her eyes held genuine affection for her sister. Pamela, you are my only sister, and I cherish you. There hasn't been a single day when I didn't want you to succeed in medicine. Today, I sincerely congratulate you on your marriage to Dr. Crawford. She turned to Bennett with warm respect. Dr. Crawford, your reputation for patient compassion precedes you. Please continue to bring that same care to your relationship with my sister. Finally, Virginia looked around the entire venue, making eye contact with physicians, researchers, and hospital administrators. Everyone, this is my story. The story of a supposed failure. A nursing school dropout who couldn't become a real healthcare professional. But I have no regrets about my journey because it gave me insight into what patients truly need: dignity, consistency, and someone who sees them as whole people, not just medical cases. From the corner of the venue, Dr. Thornton began a quiet, dignified applause. It quickly spread through the medical professionals present until the entire venue resonated with thunderous appreciation, not just polite acknowledgement, but the genuine recognition of peers. As the applause gradually quieted, a profound stillness spread throughout the venue. Virginia put down the microphone and was about to leave the stage, her body aching from standing so long. At that moment, Evelyn stood up and grabbed her daughter's arm with desperate fingers. How dare you? Evelyn's voice was trembling with rage and humiliation. Why are you telling such ridiculous lies? Who would believe that you've become some healthcare innovator? You couldn't even finish nursing school. Her shrill voice echoed throughout the venue, and the guests once again watched with uncomfortable expressions as the family drama unfolded before them. Virginia looked at her mother with the patient expression she had perfected through years of dealing with difficult family members of patients. She answered in a calm yet resolute tone. Mom, every word I've said is true. Whether you accept it or not doesn't change what I've built. Evelyn couldn't process her daughter's words and shouted with a flushed face, her hand unconsciously reaching for her purse where her pill bottles rattled. I was a teacher. I know who has intelligence and who doesn't. How could you, who couldn't even complete basic nursing education, run a company that real doctors respect? The venue held its collective breath. Dr. Margaret Thornton stood up again and walked with slow, deliberate steps toward Virginia and Evelyn. Mrs. Caldwell, Her voice carried the quiet authority of decades in medical leadership. What Virginia has described is not only accurate but understates her accomplishments. Her company's integrated care model is revolutionizing how we support aging patients. Dignified Sunset Care was recognized as one of the most innovative healthcare startups by the National Institute on Aging last year. Evelyn was at a loss for words, her entire worldview crumbling before her. Pamela approached slowly, looking at her sister with new eyes. Complex emotions fought for dominance in her expression: shock, confusion, and the first glimmers of genuine respect. "Is it really true?" Pamela's voice was uncharacteristically small. "You paid for this entire wedding? All my medical school tuition?" Virginia nodded slowly, her hand unconsciously moving to her aching lower back. "I wanted you to have every opportunity to become the doctor you wanted to be." Tears welled up in Pamela's eyes, smearing her perfect makeup. "But She stumbled over her words, the carefully constructed image of the brilliant, self-made doctor dissolving. "We always treated you like you were beneath us. Like your work didn't matter. Even if I were just a nursing school dropout working basic care jobs." Virginia quietly continued, "I loved our family, Pamela. I set aside my healthcare dreams so yours could flourish. And even now, I truly want you to succeed as a physician who truly cares for her patients." Her words resonated throughout the entire venue, touching something fundamental about the true meaning of care. Tears glistened in the eyes of many guests, including several distinguished physicians who had devoted their lives to healing others. "I created my company to fill the gaps I saw in patient care," Virginia continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to build something meaningful that would help people like our father. But," her voice trembled slightly, "but today I finally understood how deeply my own family dismissed the very work that gives dignity to patients in their most vulnerable moments." A single tear traced its way down Virginia's weathered face, mapping the years of exhaustion and dedication. "Even now, I don't resent either of you, because family ties remain, even when they're strained." Evelyn stood speechless, her entire identity as the mother of a doctor suddenly complicated by her rejection of her other daughter's success. Pamela shook her head while crying, her perfect bridal image shattered by the realization of what her success had truly cost. A profound silence hung over the venue as the assembled medical community witnessed a powerful lesson in what care truly means. At that moment, Dr. Bennett stood up and walked to his bride's side. He placed his hand gently on Pamela's shoulder and said quietly, yet clearly enough for everyone in the hall to hear, "The family dynamics I've witnessed today are very different from what I've been told throughout our relationship." Pamela looked up at her husband's face, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. Fear and uncertainty clouded her eyes. "Bennett, please, Not now." Bennett gently but firmly interrupted her. He turned to Virginia and inclined his head respectfully. "Miss Caldwell, your commitment to compassionate care extends far beyond your professional life. The dignity you've shown today speaks volumes about your character. As a physician, I'm humbled by what I've learned." Pamela's face drained of color at his words. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Bennett, our future together. We'll discuss this privately," Bennett replied, his professional demeanor intact, but a new coldness evident in his eyes. Virginia, drawing on years of experience mediating family conflicts in healthcare settings, took the microphone again. "Everyone, especially my colleagues in healthcare," she said with genuine warmth, "today is a celebration of new beginnings. Whatever our paths have been, let's honor Pamela and Bennett's journey forward." She raised her wine glass despite the pain in her wrist. "To Pamela and Bennett, may your partnership be guided by true healing principles." The venue filled with thoughtful applause. This response was markedly different from the earlier uncomfortable laughter. It carried genuine respect for Virginia's grace under pressure and her evident commitment to care. Pamela's face flushed with shame and remorse, her eyes fixed on the floor. Throughout the remainder of the reception, Evelyn sat isolated in a corner, barely touching her food, the collection of pill bottles in her purse left untouched. The perfect image of the educator mother with a doctor daughter that she had cultivated for decades had crumbled completely. Pamela remained by Bennett's side as protocol demanded, but there was palpable tension between them. Though he maintained professional courtesy, there was a clinical detachment in his interaction with his new wife, as if he were reassessing a diagnosis. Virginia was approached by numerous medical professionals, discussing her innovative care models, telehealth integration strategies, and her remarkable resilience in the face of professional dismissal. She answered all inquiries with the same thoughtful consideration she gave to patient concerns. What's the secret to your success in elder care? Virginia smiled in response to Dr. Thornton's question, listening to patients first, understanding that medical care is only part of healing and perhaps a bit of stubbornness. More than stubbornness, Dr. Thornton replied. Your experience as a caregiver has given you insights that those of us who focus solely on medical training often miss. As the reception wound down, Virginia sat alone at a small table, massaging her aching hands that had lifted countless patients, changed innumerable beds, and built a healthcare company from nothing. She was processing the day's events, her emotions swirling like medication in an 4-tube. Virginia? Turning slowly, she saw Pamela standing there. Her sister's eyes were red and puffy from crying, her perfect appearance now disheveled. Did you want to talk? Virginia asked gently, the same tone she used with distressed family members at the care facility. Pamela struggled to find words, opening and closing her mouth several times. Finally, she whispered, I'm so ashamed. Virginia looked at her sister with professional compassion. Pamela, I'm not looking for apologies. But I need to give one, Pamela insisted, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I've been a terrible sister. All these years, I thought my success was entirely my own doing. I never acknowledged how much you gave up for me. Virginia carefully stood up, her joints stiff from the day's emotional and physical toll, and took her sister's trembling hand. The past is written, but today we start a new chapter. What matters now is how we care for each other going forward. The two sisters embraced for the first time in years, truly seeing each other. Beyond the windows of the medical center, the spring sunshine illuminated the Boston skyline, where countless patients were receiving care. It was the season of healing and new beginnings. 1 year had passed since the wedding. From Virginia's executive office window, the sprawling Boston Medical District was visible, including the Crawford Medical Center, where Pamela had once worked. Her company, Dignified Sunset Care, had expanded significantly over the past year, pioneering new integrated care models that were being studied by medical schools nationwide. She took a sip of herbal tea, easing her chronic throat irritation from years of explaining care plans, and reviewed the documents spread across her desk. It was a proposal for a scholarship program to support nursing students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds who wanted to focus on elder care. Miss Caldwell, your 2 o'clock appointment has arrived. Her assistant's voice prompted Virginia to look up with a warm smile. Thank you, please show them in. She stood by the window, her supportive orthopedic shoes cushioning her weight, as she gazed toward the hospital where she had once dreamed of working as a nurse. This past year had brought profound changes. Her relationship with Evelyn had briefly improved. After the wedding revelation, her mother had offered stumbling apologies and made gestures toward reconciliation. But the pattern soon repeated itself. Within weeks, Evelyn began requesting money for increasingly expensive prescription medications. When Virginia arranged for treatment instead of simply providing funds, her mother's attitude reverted to coldness. Now Evelyn lived largely isolated, her former social standing among other teachers eroded by the truth. She continued to resent Virginia's success while depending on her financially. At community events, she would sometimes mutter, "She's not really in healthcare." But her words carried no weight among those who had seen Virginia's work featured in medical journals. Meanwhile, Pamela and Bennett's marriage had deteriorated rapidly. The revelations at their wedding had created an unbridgeable gap. Bennett, with his genuine commitment to patient care, couldn't reconcile himself to Pamela's superficial approach to medicine and her years of deception. Pamela had tried desperately to prove herself a worthy physician and partner, but the carefully constructed facade she had maintained throughout medical school couldn't withstand real scrutiny. They were now living separately, with divorce proceedings underway. Virginia's reflections were interrupted by a gentle knock. Turning carefully to avoid aggravating Her back pain. She was surprised to see Pamela standing in the doorway. Her sister appeared thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and her once perfect appearance noticeably subdued. However, there was new authenticity in her expression. "Do you have a moment?" Pamela asked softly. Virginia welcomed her sister in. Pamela gazed around at the awards for healthcare innovation lining the walls but quickly focused on her sister. "Bennett and I are finalizing our divorce," she said quietly. Virginia said nothing, simply taking her sister's hand in her own work-worn one. "It's for the best," Pamela continued with unexpected clarity. "This year has forced me to examine who I really am as a person and as a physician. I've been doing a lot of soul-searching." For the first time, genuine remorse filled her words. "I understand now what true patient care means, the kind you've been providing all these years, while I was posing for Instagram. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to become a better doctor." Tears welled up in Virginia's eyes. She carefully rose and embraced her sister. "Pamela, it's never too late to become the healer you were meant to be." The sisters held each other for a long time, their shared family pain beginning to heal like a properly treated wound. Outside the window, spring sunshine illuminated Boston's medical district, where both sisters now worked to bring care and dignity to patients in their own ways. It was truly a season of new beginnings.